Shalom, I'm Nama Rue. This is
I'm David Rue.
And we are reviewing specific rules regarding Shmita, laws having to do with the land resting every seventh year and the conduct of the Jewish people on the homeland.
Yeah, last time we were looking at all the different rabbinic prohibitions, or the Torah required the rabbis to create things that we were not supposed to do on Shmita so that the land would rest. And we're going to look at the first several of them today, not just as a list, but a little bit more detail on how they work actually. There is a Mishnah in Shvi'is, the second Mishnah in the second Mefrek, that says, Mizablim uma'adrin, you do zibul and idur. We'll discuss exactly what these words. Ad Rosh Hashanah, until Rosh Hashanah, which obviously means after Rosh Hashanah you can. V'ken bebeit השלחין, and also in a field that needs irrigation. Miyablin, mefraqim, ma'afrin, ma'ashrin, for other things. Ad Rosh Hashanah, until Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to try and look at all six of these right now.
So this is what you do not do in the months, weeks before the new year.
You can do it. The Mishnah says you can do it until Rosh Hashanah, implying that after Rosh Hashanah you can't do it.
Of the Shemitah year. Okay.
So mizabling, zevel is manure. So it's very clear. You're not allowed to fertilize. This applies to any type of modern, or let me say most type of modern fertilizers. So there is fertilizer that is applied regularly, and there's stuff that breaks up over time. What the advisable thing to do today is use the type that breaks up over time, put a little bit extra on, so that will provide most of your fertilizer needs for the year. There is also fertilizer that runs through the irrigation system, that's added to the water of the irrigation system. In general, this is prohibited. However, there are certain circumstances where different poskim have permitted it. If someone has a great need for this, they should consult their Rav for this issue, because it's much too complicated for us to address in this format. But I just want people to be aware that if there is a great need, that there is sometimes an ability to fertilize through liquid fertilizers running through the standard irrigation that's computer set before the year begins. So the next thing in the Mishnah is מעדרין, which is a little bit difficult to understand. It's hoeing. So the question is, how is hoeing different than plowing? Both you're using a tool to make the land better. So the Rambam says that the difference between the two is that harisha, plowing, is done through animals, is done through non-human power primarily. I would assume he would say that the tractor today is also harisha, whereas Ma'ader is using a tool, but by hand. It's using a hand tool. That would be the difference between that and plowing, which can be a Torah prohibition. The third malacha, miyablin, the Bartanero, and almost everyone goes along with him, we're only going to discuss his opinion, chotim hayaboles mumim hanoldin be'ilan. You cut off growths from trees. Now, as a sofer, the Rambam gives a recipe for the ink you're supposed to use to write on Sifrei Torah. And I like to call it a witch's brew. But one of the ingredients that he uses is, he says there are growths that grow on the side of oak trees in Eretz Yisrael. And you cut these off, and you chop them up, and you burn it into an ash, and you mix the ash with oil, and you burn it again. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole process at all. But anyway, there are these growths on side of trees. They're not natural to them, that normally would be removed. And then Shmita, we're not allowed to do that. That would be prohibited.
So it's like a parasitic vine or something like that?
I think what it is an insect infestation where like a person builds a cyst, or animals build cysts around something that's in the body that's infecting it. I think it's the same type of thing that a tree does to defend itself. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But that's what they're describing, a growth, an unnatural growth on the side of the tree. Mefraqin, perek is literally to break something up. And the Rash and the Bartanura in their commentaries on the Mishnah say that it is that you're covering up exposed roots of the tree with dust or ash. All right? The Rambam in Hilchos Shmita says that you're not allowed to spread ash as over the top of the tree. I have no idea why you would be spreading ashes over the top of the tree. Maybe it would be protecting it from different types of insects that might come. We use, smoke is used to drive bees and other insects away and so on. Maybe it's something like that. I'm not completely sure. The Rash Ciritlo, which we've run across before, he was one of the exiles from Spain in 1492, says it's from V'yavek Ishimo, a man struggles with him. And so he says you have the tree can crack opened, and we're binding the tree closed when it's beginning to crack opened. So we have three different interpretations of Avkin. One is covering up exposed roots. Two is spreading ash in the top of the tree. And three is to bind up a crack in a tree. מעשנין is the next one. And the Rash says, the Rash, by the way, is the Rash Mishans. One of the Balei Tosos wrote a commentary on Mishnayos. The Rash Silvero, as I said, is one of the rabbis who was exiled from Spain in the Spanish exile, about for a few hundred years between them, and different countries. One's from France, one's from Spain. So the Rash says, Ma'ashnin shema'alin ashan tachat ilan. I'm creating smoke under the tree. Kadei shiplu mimenu hatolaim or yamusu, so that the worms and bugs fall out of the tree or die. They either fall out, or if they stay in the tree, they die. This would be the modern equivalent of using an insecticide in a tree. However, the Rambam in the Pirush Mishnayos says, Osin ashan tachtechem laharoga tolaim ochlei hapri ve'advekim bo. The Rambam says, you're doing this not to protect the tree, as the Rash says, but you're doing it to protect the fruit. Now, according to the way we learned Rav Kook, this makes perfect sense, because Rav Kook said you're not allowed to do anything to protect the fruit. You're allowed to protect the tree if there would be damage to it, and the insects could conceivably turn long-term damage to a tree. So the way the Rambam is limiting it, I'm not allowed to do this to protect the fruit, but I'm allowed to do it to protect the tree. According to the Rash, you can't do it either to protect the fruit or the tree. According to the Chazon Ish, where I'm allowed to guard my fruit from loss, or I should say everyone's fruit from loss, as the Chazon Ish should say it, because it's public, right?
Ownerless, yeah.
So he says sometimes, even though in general you're allowed to protect the fruit, there were certain things that the Chachamim prohibited anyway. Meaning, in general I can protect fruit, but sometimes I can't. The Shulchan says you can't do anything, any rabbinic thing, with the tree itself. It has to be outside of the tree in some way. The Tosos and the Rosh say the purpose of this smoking is to make the fruit ripen better and grow larger. Rav Eliashiv, in his Pesach about spraying insecticides on trees, said that it was mutter to do on Shmita. You're always allowed to, he said you were always allowed to spray insecticides on trees. Not everyone agrees to this. There are the people that follow Rav Kook's Pesach, of course, say if you're spraying the insecticide to protect the tree, it's fine. If you're spraying the insecticide to protect the fruit, then it would be prohibited. These are the first 6 of the Rabbinic prohibitions, and in the next lesson we will continue with more of them.
How many are there?
A lot.
Okay. Lot to learn.
A lot to learn.